Are you going to ask questions like one by one?
Oh yeah, so I was just talking about like the panel format. So I'll first give an introduction of the entire panel event and also a quick introduction of every panelist. And I will ask everyone to introduce yourselves. And then I'll start a discussion. So hopefully we'll have like 40, 50 minutes discussion. So basically I will ask the questions and I will see how it goes, but preferably some discussions on this topic, yeah, providing some insights that the PhD candidates cannot get when they are applying, or they probably want to know before they apply, something like that. Some not very valuable information, any kind of know. Right. Because I'm applying, so I drafted all these questions based on my interest. All right. So we are almost at 30 minutes. We already have a few audiences in the waiting room, so we will expect them to join in a moment. And on 30th, we will start live streaming and we will start a panel discussion. And sir, would you let me know once we go live stream, and I will take from there.
We're live on YouTube
already.
Yeah. So you can start whenever you're ready.
Okay, well, I see still a few in the waiting room, but
I'll let them in.
Okay. Let's wait for 1 minute. We are at 11:28 now. See if we can make it.
Also, I think during the introduction, it would be helpful to say when people were in the job market. I mean, for the assistant professors.
Yeah, right.
So people can understand like it's like job market situation at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, we have a lot of audiences joining. Yeah, great. We are almost at the time, so let's just get it started. So welcome everyone. I'm Zixuan Wang from Students at Systems Organization, and I'm also a PhD candidate at UC San Diego. I'm personally looking for academia jobs this year. So today we will have a discussion panel on job hunting in the academic job market. Right now, it's an application season every year. Like candidates, they are applying to honor university that have professor job openings. But the application process involves a lot of detailed information. Some of them are quite hard for candidates to figure out themselves. So we, as a student at System, we care about that. We are a small and independent group of researchers organizing talks, podcasts, and panels, primarily targeting the students in the systems community in general. So this time we are so excited to organize this panel discussion talking about academia job hunting. And this is actually the second episode of this topic. Last episode was in 2022 summer. And if you are interested in, the recording is on YouTube. So this time we are fortunate to have 4 professors coming from a wide range of universities to come and discuss academia job hunting. So I will give a brief introduction to all of our panelists and then ask them to do a more complete self-introduction. So first we have Lizy from UT Austin. She's joined UT Austin since 1996. She's a fellow of IEEE, ACM, and NAI, and she has made significant contributions to computer architecture and some other research communities. I personally have read a lot of papers from Lizy's group, and they are really inspiring. And Maros is our second panelist. He joined Imperial College London in 2022 and has been working on a lot of fun research projects on system area. His research on data center scalability and fault tolerance has been recognized by, as the Best Student Paper Award in EuroSASS. And Kexin is our third panelist. He's going to join U Chicago starting from fall 2024. He's been doing a lot of exciting research on security and software engineering area. And his work on automated white box testing of deep learning system has received the Best Paper Award on SOSP. And Dmitrii is our last panelist. He recently joined NTU Singapore, and he has been working on cloud and serverless research. And he has initiated the vHive project, which is an open source serverless framework that is widely used. So now I will hand over the virtual microphone to our panelists and ask them to do a more complete self-introduction. So Lizy, would you like to start?
Okay. So I'm at UT Austin, as you mentioned. I have been on the faculty here since 96, but I graduated my PhD in 93. It's probably the worst job market in 30 plus years. 91, 92, 93 was, 91, 92 was the depression, kind of a recession after the first Gulf War, and market, industry was practically not hiring any PhDs. And so that is the time I graduated. I have worked in, my main area is computer architecture. Workload characterization and performance evaluation has been the main thing I worked on. And so as workloads change, for instance, now ML workloads are a big deal. So a lot of work revolves around ML. I started with Java, multimedia, media processing. Then I have done databases. I've done different workloads in these over the years. I guess I'll get chance to talk more as the different questions come. So I would rather stop here.
Thank you. And Marios, would you like to continue?
Sure. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thanks very much for the invitation and the introduction. So I'm a lecturer in UK terms for assistant professor here at Imperial College in London. I joined almost a year ago, summer 2022. I was on the job market 1 year before that. So it was 2021, and it was the job market during the pandemic years. So it was a very weird and interesting experience overall. I graduated from EPFL in 2020, and in the meantime, I spent some time in Microsoft research here in Cambridge in the UK, and I also maintain an affiliation with Microsoft, so I'm also a visiting researcher there. And my general research focus is systems mainly for the data center, studying low latency systems, studying programmable switches, studying also confidentiality in the data center, how to build systems that can provide this kind of guarantees.
All right, that's amazing. And Kexin, would you like to continue?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, I'm Kexin. I'm an incoming assistant professor at the University of Chicago starting in 2024. And I received my PhD this year at Columbia University. And I was also affiliated with Microsoft Research as well as Google DeepMind. I'm still working with Google DeepMind now. And my research has been broadly on security, software engineering, and machine learning. And I have been recently mostly focusing on developing this data-driven program analysis approaches for different software engineering and software security applications. So yeah, to be more specific, I focus on this machine learning for code or large language model for code to learn about program structure and behavior. Yeah, super excited here. Thanks.
Yeah, that's great. And Dmitrii, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Great to be here. I'm a graduate also from Europe, from University of Edinburgh. I was in the job market a couple of years ago and started my assistant professor position December last year. During my job search, I applied both in Europe and also in Asia. So that's my experience that I'd like to share. And the current research focus is serverless and cloud computing in a very broad sense, in the sense of operating systems and computer architecture support for today's cloud and AI as a service.
That's great. And thank you so much for our panelists to join. And before we start the panel discussion, we would also like to thank our community members and students at the Systems who have been working so hard for several months to organize this event. They are really amazing. And all right, let's get it started with a few topics we already prepared. So yeah, so since now it's the application season, and PhD candidates, they are applying to different schools, they are preparing their application package. And among all the statements, I think research statement is really one important statement, and it really can matter when the university is evaluating you. So we would like to first talk about how to write a good research statement and how a university evaluate a research statement. So I would like to start from a kind of like personal question. It's like, I would like to ask our panelists, how did you write your research statement in general? How do you come up with your story? How do you make it clear? So we would like to start from this personal experience. So anyone would like to start? Right.
I can start.
Right.
I think the first, the most important concern is the structure and the storyline in your research statement. So this is just the research statement must be just a couple of pages. So in our case, in my case, it was mostly 3 pages, 4 pages. So it has to be very coherent storyline, overseeing your research as it was all connected from the beginning to the end, right? And showing your research strengths and breadths and depths of what you're doing to a rather broad set of reviewers. It is actually quite difficult to come up with a good research statement. So I would say in preparation, it took me the most time out of all the documentation that I had to put together for a job application to just think about what the research statement would be. Partially, it comes from, let's say, the introduction of the thesis, like in my experience, but it should go deeper in a sense that it should also spawn directions that would be interesting and different enough from what you were doing in your thesis or maybe the postdoc work.
Right. Yeah. Anyone want to like add something like personal experience or something? Yeah. Feel free to chime in. Right. Or I'll ask questions. So Lizy, so when you were applying, yeah. So, oh, are you talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
It's a lot of years ago, so I don't even exactly remember what I wrote. But I would say, Dmitrii mentioned many good points, the breadth and the depth. Okay, so the big difference when you write this research statement as opposed to all the papers you were writing during the previous 3 or 4 years or how many ever years, the big thing is the papers are read by usually people who are in that area. The research statement is read by many people who are completely away from the area, because most departments will have a breadth of areas and you are in one narrow place. So it's important to showcase the impact of the area or why whatever you did is relevant in the world. So put little bit of a big picture. Don't miss that part. You should go into depth because the people in the area will be evaluating you based on your depth. So you should have pieces and on, directly related to the dissertation and how that is important or what was your biggest contribution. You should mention a little bit of that and where you are going with this. It's so you can have subtopics so people don't have time. They will still see some of the big titles. You could, so you should have the breadth and the depth. That is one thing I would say that you shouldn't miss. So it's different from a paper. It should be, it should cater to 2 kinds of audiences while in the same document. And so in my case, I would say I was working on something called decoupled access execute architectures. So, and there aren't too many architecture faculty anywhere you are applying. There will be 3 or 4. something like that. So you know that you should basically be appealing to many others, otherwise you will never get that interview call. Nowadays, maybe there are many times committees for each area, at least in big departments. Maybe then you have a chance with the depth, but in many departments, it may be one committee for all areas together. The individual area can say things, but you should appeal to everybody. So don't miss the breadth.
That's perfect.
So I can maybe add something here. In a way, the research statement, it's your chance to set yourself apart from the others, right? So everyone is going to have amazing papers, everyone is going to have awards, but in your research statement, you have a chance to talk about your research to a broader audience and maybe talk about the direct or indirect impact of your research. For example, and I'm not talking about citations and whatnot, I'm talking about people potentially using the kind of research you've done, people potentially adopting your research in an industry setting. So things that cannot be seen in a CV, or things that cannot be seen in just reading the paper. So for example, in my case, I had a particular methodology that I extensively used in my papers, and you could see that a bunch of papers after mine adopted this methodology, and this was widely used. Or so it was not one particular contribution in the papers, it was a research style, if you want, that other people decide that it's interesting and they decided to adopt. Another thing that I wrote with regards to the impact was that I built a tool that other people use that in their day-to-day research as well. So things that show that your research is kind of appreciated beyond just the academic community. People can read through through the lines of your papers, and they're interested in what you can actually produce.
Right.
And I highly agree with what the other panelists have mentioned. And something I hope to add is like exactly like you need to have a single coherent story, so that you need to figure out like the actual first order thing that you want to emphasize, and all the other like technical contributions and the very concrete ideas should go secondary. That is like how you elaborate your contribution along the line of the story. So actually the story appeals to the broader audience, and the actual techniques and the technical contributions appeal to the experts in your domain. And my personal experience in preparing a research statement is it is quite of a iterative process. So I would suggest start early and keep iterating. Sometimes all of this actually comes after like 10 or 20 times of iteration, by going back and forth with a lot of people who are willing to help you. So yeah, that's my personal experience.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's our like a lot of like general advice, like a high level guidance on how to write a research statement. That's pretty amazing. So now we want to go to a little bit detailed advices or detailed tricks. So one thing I would like to ask our panelists is that what did you do as kind of like a trick or kind of like experience to make a statement stay clear? It is clear to everyone, it is clear to even someone not in your research direction, but they can still get a sense that this one is doing a really good research there. It is really important. So how to make sure your audiences or your or in a hiring committee to get that kind of a sense, even if they are not in your research area. So do you have any tricks or any general advice on that? Feel free to talk about it.
I would just say something Kexin already alluded to, which is have someone else read it. And it is good to have someone who is away from the area read it, So the big picture, the very big picture, they might ask you questions too, and you are like, didn't I tell that? Because sometimes when, you have a tendency to talk to people in your area, but when someone else asks, you might realize you have missed saying something you thought was too obvious, but it's not really obvious to others. So have someone read it. That's my biggest advice. I think I had a couple of people read it. You can ask your professor to read it, but you should ask your friends or even someone who is not at all connected, a family member who is willing to spend some time for you, could read it and ask some really faraway questions, which will really get, oh, maybe I should do something else here, in this paragraph or in the introductory paragraph. So have many people read it, and that'll help you. Nowadays, universities also have writing centers and facilities available for you to improve your statement. You could consult with them, and I guess there is ChatGPT too. You could ask something, are things clear, so perhaps there are more avenues to get help now compared to the times I was graduating.
Based on my experience, I can also say allow enough time. So for me, it was at least a month, maybe a month and a half, where you iterate on feedback. But even before you iterate on feedback and write your own statement, make sure you read other statements from people who were in the market recently. So this is very important because this is the only way to learn about what is the expected structure and what people would like. Let's say if you know people personally who were in the market recently and you know their research, you should also pay attention to how they position it for the research statement, because this is quite different from the papers, just like Mario said. And also you need to understand what is the impact of your work and what is the strength that you should put forward. And it's not about the conferences and particular papers you wrote. It's about, I don't know, impact in open source, impact in adoption, and so on and so on. You need to know what your community values.
Right.
And what universities look for also, like not just your community, their operating systems, right?
Any other advices?
I guess having in mind the difference between the context and the content, it's very important to describe the context very well, so that even people that are not in this area, they feel comfortable, and then you go into the content. And it's important to provide content as well to go into details for the domain experts, but the context is more important, so that you ease people into your specific field of research and explain to them why what you're doing makes sense and it's important.
Right. I think here I also agree with Lizy, like by talking to different experts from different domains, as well as some people that are out of your out of computer science, for example. I think one concrete advice I have received is try to minimize the usage of some jargons where you think it reads very fancy in your domain, but it confuses people from other domains, so that you can restrict yourself to certain words and always use them to re-emphasize them during the coherent story, and that will be very helpful to avoid confusions.
Well, these are very amazing advices. So now, so far, we have been talking about how to write a research statement as a, say, PhD candidate looking for a job. So next, I would like to see from another perspective, like if you are a university hiring committee, and how do you evaluate a statement? Because our panelists are recently joined a university or is going to join a university. So now you are not applicants, but more of a reviewer of the statement. So the first question under this topic is like, if you are a hiring committee, what do you think is the most important part in a research statement? Right.
Okay. I would say if it is someone in my area, I'm really looking for the contributions and the depth there. If I'm reviewing someone who is not in my area, I'm just trying to relate myself. And so I'm trying to see connections to outside this person's area. So it's a good idea to leave a few connections so somebody outside will see it. And I will also say something, especially with the previous question, and you should consult lots of people, you get lots of advice. Sometimes some of the advice you get may be conflicting. Two people may say opposite things and you don't know which one to do. Or sometimes you hear something and you are like, I don't know for sure, I want to write this or I want to change that. So I would say at the end, be comfortable with what you wrote, because if the hiring committee, you are coming and there is a discussion on something, you want to be comfortable with what you wrote. So if you are evaluating different choices, because I would like when someone actually shows up, and if I would ask something which I had read in their statement, if they are like lukewarm about it, I'm not going to be impressed. You have to own what you wrote. So put things you are comfortable there. So when they are evaluating and someone asks you either in a Skype interview or in a real interview, think you should be comfortable defending or passionately explaining what did you mean. So that is something I look for. Is the person passionate about what they wrote?
Well, like I can give you my view as well. I have very limited experience. I only did that last year as part of the panel here at Imperial. I think there's a difference between the prior work and the future work. So when I'm looking at the prior work, I'm trying to understand the impact of this work and especially when it's not in my community, and try to see how this person might fit in the department, whether I could collaborate with them, whether there is overlap with the people that we already have in the department. When it comes to the future work, then I'm trying to, I was trying to see two things: whether this person is ready to start producing something, if they have their first ideas already in terms of the papers they will immediately start working on, and whether this shows a plan for the next 4 or 5 years, if they have an idea of what they would like to work on down the line, and whether this problem is something that I might find interesting and challenging. So whether there is this breadth we were talking about before, and whether there is this vision that it's not only about the next paper, it's also about the papers down the line in 4 or 5 years. So I think there's a difference between the before and after here.
I could also leave a couple of comments. I haven't been on the hiring committee yet, but this is based on my conversations with senior people, and also now I'm exposed to conversations which happen in the department. So actually NTU is hiring a lot. So it's we have many open positions in computer science and engineering department. So the way NTU Singapore, my university, looks for candidates is quite different from other universities. So you actually need to know what what is the pattern for applicant search in the universities you apply. So particularly in the university we have here, it's very strong in AI, and it keeps recruiting AI ML people because for them it's easier to make the case. So it's actually a priority for them, but at the same time they also want to strike balance with who they already have and who they don't have. So they also need to recruit people, for example, in computer systems. So right now, NTU has gaps and they want to get more candidates in this area. So, but particular departments that you may know, they may have different strategies in terms of reinforcing the existing departments, being ahead of everyone in a certain direction, and in comprehensive enough, because everybody has to deliver operating systems and then I don't know, NLP and other subjects in school. So somebody has to do it, right? So who would do it? That's the question you would ask. So you also need to see whether your background overlaps with a certain faculty that who is already there or not. And another thing I want to highlight is even when you apply and you don't get selected, it's not always because of you. It's also could be because of the particular strategy that the department has in mind right now. And I would say it's even more important at a later stage when you already called for an interview and you interview and then you don't get an offer. This also could be not because you're not good enough, but probably because of the priorities based on the shortlisted candidates that they got.
Great. I think I also don't have any experience from the hiring committee's perspective. But from my conversation also, if I am imagining I'm serving as a hiring committee, yeah, I think I agree with what the previous panelist said regarding the past works. I probably will focus on the impact, considering if the candidates are not from my field. So the impact in terms of like, have your work been deployed in the real world, like, or different other sort of factors. In terms of future work, I think it is definitely also biased by my own like a taste of research. I'm thinking of whether that future direction is has like a very good vision that can be done for a long time, like within 5 or 10 years. On the other hand, how does that relate to my own research? Is there any possibility that we can collaborate, for example? That's just like my personal bias. But on the other hand, I think overall evaluating statement, just like what Dmitrii said, is kind of like a mutual fit kind of evaluation, where sometimes the department has its own like a strategic focus for this year. So so I think the ultimate advice for this is just try to be yourself, try to be honest about your passion and research taste and research interest. There will always be some department that really likes your research, and there might be also many departments who are not looking for this candidate, and it's totally fine, to be honest.
If I may add one point, I would say the faculty job is like looked upon as a long-term hire, especially with tenured positions. And there are professors who stay in the same school for 40 years. So that long-term prospects, your research statement should highlight a picture when someone reads it, even if they didn't care too much about your very specific dissertation. They see a person who is strong and who will for a long time make contributions, so show the depth that you have. That was your dissertation. You can't, that's fine. But the passion, the depth, maybe the methodology, as already came across, some of how you did it, or some of the methodology, people feel a strong researcher who would contribute for a long time, would collaborate with others and help to grow the department and make the department a bigger and better place. So, that long-term prospects, think about, does this essay at the end, the statement, make it clear to someone what you might be doing in a long time or how you would be doing it? So if you show some things about that, that will also be helpful when you are being evaluated. But of course, as Kexin said, be yourself. That's important, because you don't want a job by hiding your real passion, because you will be unhappy even if you get the job. So you should be yourself, and there will be some department who likes it the way you are, and you are only trying to make the statement good to show who you are. That's what you should be doing.
That's pretty amazing. Thank you so much for all these valuable advices. So now we have talking about research statement for quite some time. So I now want to move to another discussion topic that is about a reference letter. So it is something that is partially under our control, but partially not. So it's some kind of thing that could be very tricky. So there could be a lot of tricks in there or some experience in there. So the first question, or a general question, is like, if you are have been in a hiring committee, what do you look for in an applicant's reference letter? Or if you have more experience on applying, what did you do to make your reference letter look strong and supportive? So do we have any experience or advices on that? Right.
Okay, so when you're reading letters, of course, if you have really strong letters from really well-known people, of course it's good. But each candidate may not know way too many well-known people, or they may not be writing the most strongest letter. So I guess it will end up being a mix. You do want strong letters. You do want letters from people who know you, so they write with that knowledge of you and your work. And the most well-known or others would have read letters from this person, and if they give a strong letter for you, they'll say, oh, I've read many letters, this letter is so strong, or this person wouldn't say this. So if this person said this, that has a lot of value. So, but I would say, so give importance to the strength of the letter you can get, and put in a mix of, it's good to have some the most known people that others would know. Most known people would be great as well.
I guess one thing that I would like to add here is not only well-known people, sure, this would be great, but also people that are or have been somehow involved with hiring. So either more senior professors that had prior students that are already academics, so they have done this already once, because then there is an easy way to do some kind of comparison, or people that are part of the hiring committees in other universities. So people that know how to read a lot of letters and have written a lot of letters already, because these reference letters follow more or less a particular structure. There's a lot of comparison in there. Maybe I'm not saying don't get letters from the industry, but people that the more involved the people are with hiring, the better, I think, for the letter.
What I can add is from my own experience and from the struggles that I see in people who are just about to join the market, is how do you get enough letters? Some universities require up to 5 letters being submitted, and this may sound quite mind-blowing as you go fresh out of your PhD, because probably it's just your advisor, maybe 1 or 2 collaborators. So you can also include thesis committee members, for example. You can also think about who is using my work, who adopted it, who values it the most, right? Whose group is using your artifact or tools, methodologies. So you can also ask them. And you do need to invest in networking, not just in the last year of your PhD, let's say, or a postdoc. So that matters a lot. But not all of the letters have to be strong. You need strong letters, you need strong letter writers, but sometimes you also need, just a somewhat complementary strong say from, I don't know, your users or your people who value your work. And that would be enough.
Right. I think this experience is also quite personal. So I haven't summarized like a rule of thumbs yet, but my personal experience is I have 3 letters from my advisors. I have 3 actually advisors at Columbia, and 1 letter from whom I have never collaborated with, but know our work. So my personal experience is that here asking for a letter, you might you can use the help from your advisor. For example, your advisor has some connection with the group who works closely in the same area, for example, so that they know the work that you and your advisor appear on, so that they can try to reach out to help you. So my advisor has been very helpful on this matter. And in terms of controlling the quality, it's really, like Zixuan said, it's out of your control. So I would say just like trust the letter writer. Yeah, that's my feeling for now. That's my impression. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. Lizy, are you going to add something?
I was just going to say that number 5 seems to be, you want to look for or think about 5 possible letter writers. 1 can be advisor, 1 should be advisor. 2 more from the committee would be okay. Those are people who know your work somewhat deeper. So if you're already in your final year and it is not much time to develop collaborations in industry or outside the university, you can only do so much about it now. But if you have a little bit more time left in your PhD, you should probably get your advisor's help early on to maybe think about who are some other external collaborators. You could have some discussions or some exposure to your work. So in which case, it becomes easy to find that letter writer when you are in the market.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. So now we have been talking about research statement. We have talking about reference letter. There are actually typically 2 other statements that are diversity and teaching statements. So we would like to put some discussion on that. Since we our panelists have been writing that or reviewing that, so any general advice on like clearly present your thoughts in this teaching statement, or what are the community looking at when they're reviewing these statements? Any general advice on these diversity and teaching statements that you can offer to our audiences? Right.
So in my experience, teaching statement is much easier to write than research statement. So all of it is like you summarize your experience and your style of teaching in a rather short statement. Maybe extend it with your plans or with like what you can teach. I think what you really need to mention is what you're able to teach, because there could be like a very simple questions that the committee is looking at is like, okay, we need someone to teach that course. Can this candidate do it? Right. So this is important. Regarding diversity statement, my advice would be to just take a look at the diversity statements of others, so you can see like what it is all about and try to write one based on your experience, based on your views, and based on what's expected also. The value of different statements may be different in different schools. For example, in my case, NTU, like the place where I got hired, they actually used to be a teaching-oriented university, so they value teaching still. So, for example, they also ask candidates to do like a mock lecture for a few, like 10 minutes or 15 minutes. So for them, it's actually important. But diversity statement was not in the list of documents that are required. So you don't have to submit it. So you can also see in which part of the world for which university they care more or less about the statements. So research statement is above all of them, that's for sure. But others depends on the school.
Yeah, I would like to add, if you have TA experience, if you, however you have been involved with teaching, if at all, whatever experience, if you were a TA, mention that, or you may want to look at this particular institution. This may be one where you want to personalize it a bit to see what their classes are and to mention a few. A few classes you could be teaching. So you should show that you have given some thought to teaching, and you should think about at least 1 or 2 undergraduate classes and a possible graduate class that you might teach. So think about that. Now, regarding the diversity statement, I encourage all the PhD students who are here to apply. Texas does not need a diversity statement. Not only that, from now on, until last year we did, but from this year on, we will not be using it, even if you submit one. So you can apply early. That's one less statement to do.
So yeah, regarding teaching, I think what I included as an extra experience is my mentoring experience. So I also talked a little bit about my mentoring on undergrad, master's, including junior PhD student, as well as some high school student who were actually, they all reached out to my advisor, and my advisor introduced them to me to get involved in some research project. And I also try to be a little specific during teaching. For example, what I observe different type of students during in the class in terms of digesting the course materials, like what are my a concrete experience doing one-on-ones with mentees, and so that I think it helps to make your statement unique. That is my experience. And for diversity, I also try to appeal to broader category of definition of diversity. I'm not sure if it helps or not. Sometimes beyond the race and gender. So I talk about, for example, different culture, dealing with students with different cultural background, different a unique personal experience during their grown up. I think that's something I can really talk about, some concrete examples. So yeah, but still take my advice as using a grain of salt, because yeah, I don't know if it helps or not.
Yeah, maybe my view on this is that independent of whether the university is asking for such statements, I think it's a great experience to try and write the statements, because you put yourself into this thinking mode, and you might even manage to discover some of your own biases with regards to teaching or with regards to diversity in general. And these are things that you will be asked to do one way or another once you join the department. We are in computer science, the diversity issues are quite important. I mean, the ratio of male-female student ratio is not the best, at least here at Imperial, but I think this is an issue that other schools might have as well. So even getting in this thinking mode and acknowledging that this is a problem and trying to propose potential solutions, it's important as a process. The thing about the teaching statement I would like to add, I definitely echo what the others mentioned, is if there is a way to express express your personality somehow in there, it's also important. If you have a particular style of approaching teaching, or if you have particular kinds of exercises, for example, that you had when you TA'd before, it's important to add them there, because this shows some kind of personality. And at least in my experience, people do read both of those. I didn't expect, and they spend time on these statements. I was amazed to see that I received questions during the interviews, both about my teaching statement and about my diversity statement. So I had something particular written in the diversity statement, that coming from my background. So both my sisters are engineers. So in a way, I take for granted that we have equal opportunity, and people pick this up and they ask me about this. So don't neglect this. It's important, and people will pay attention. It's not what will give you the job for sure, but it's important to think about this.
Right. All these are very amazing ideas. So we are going to have audience questions and answers. But before that, I would like to ask one final curated question. So what is one most important or one most best advice our panelists will give to faculty candidates, especially something that you wish you knew at the time you are applying? So I want to, so let's try to keep it short, like 1 minute, like focusing on one most important advice you want to give to our faculty candidates. So yeah, I want to start.
I can start. So my advice is very simple. Allow enough time. When you just start working on your package, you have no idea how heavy duty it is, actually. So in reality, what happens is, like, you have a half a year, you almost cannot do any research. You need to focus tremendously on this package and make it special and strong, and run by many people, apply their feedback. This is pretty much a full-time job for months. Yeah. So if you plan to just, your attitude to it as a secondary gig may just be a fatal mistake. So you need to start thinking, let's say in summer before the application cycle, you need to already start writing something, like as we talk, right? And be ready by like well before December, which is the cycle for most universities.
Yes, my advice is to talk to as many people as they can, both before and during the process. Before, to get a lot of feedback to improve your application, but also during the process as well. It's an amazing opportunity to meet a lot of people in different departments, in different parts of the world, and this will be your future collaborators. You will mingle with all these people as part of the same community. So try to take advantage of this as much as you can. Meet with and talk with people.
Right. My advice is also like enjoy this process. And to be honest, it might sound a little diplomatic, but I would still say, like, try to be yourself and just enjoy the process. And sometimes even don't need to over prepare for different places, as as I do have received some suggestions like, oh, you should go through every faculties you're gonna interview in a very detailed way, so that you can find connections. Yeah, that is definitely helpful by not over preparing it. What I mean is like, oh, sometimes I think I try to look at some faculty's past research, and that happened to be something so old that the faculty no longer is no longer interested in working on that anymore. And so ends up that as long as you be yourself, you will find your good fit. And if you failed at some university, it does not actually mean fail. It means, just like Lizy said, it's not a good fit. You won't be happy if they end up admitting you. So I think during this process, I have been going through like this very intense one-on-ones with so many faculties, and I think I learned a lot, and I really enjoyed that, and I think that's like quite a unique experience. And then yeah.
Since we talked so much about the application process, let me talk a little bit about maybe a Skype interview or Zoom interview or the actual interview itself. And for a Skype or Zoom interview, don't be scripted. It is, you'll be nervous maybe when someone asks, so it's good to be prepared, but don't be so artificially scripted. Express as if you are spontaneously saying it. It is important to have that naturalness, especially since this Zoom, and I see sometimes, people are overly prepared and a little bit artificial. And be listening. It's good to have stuff so you can be talking, but at the same time, you should be stopping so someone can ask you questions. Don't go on like a big description of your research that no one gets time to talk to you. So that's another thing. And when you actually get an interview and you are going, it is good to know a little bit about the people who will be there. And so, for instance, many departments, somebody would ask, who is the person here on our faculty closest to your research? And you don't want to miss someone who is close, but so you should be looking at the faculty to know who is someone you might collaborate with, whose research is closest to your area. Now, at the end, the final advice, be yourself, be open, be sincere, be truthful, be passionate, show your passion. And honestly, why are you wanting to be a professor? Radiate that as you interview. Why are you wanting to be a researcher? Radiate that passion as you talk about it all day. So, as long as you are wanting to be professor and wanting to do research and teaching, and it should, it'll come out from you during the day that others will see it.
Yeah, these are so amazing advices. Thank you so much for all these valuable advices. So now at the end of this event, we are going to move to our audience questions. We have a few just posted. So for these questions, since we want to answer as many as we can, so I will ask questions, and for each question, I will probably have one or two panelists to talk about the answers, so we can answer as many as of them. So the first question is about what is more important while evaluating a faculty candidate? With respect to their publications, quantity or quality. It's like number of publications versus less publication, but more impactful publications, which is more important as a university evaluating a faculty. Do you have any answer on that?
Quality is very important, and you want to emphasize the better among your papers. But as long as you have a few papers, it's not quantity. You should have, you have a few, but, having 15 or 20, that doesn't matter. But having 2 or 3 and high quality papers, and then if you have small other papers, workshop papers, little things, that's okay. But quality, but a minimum quantity, which is not very high.
Right. I guess another question is like, when answering questions in an interview, how much details should I provide?
I think being a good communicator is actually very important. So during the interview, if you reach the interview point, then this means you already qualify as a technical expert. So that's a check. So now you need to show yourself as a good collaborator, potentially, or as a person who can explain themselves, who can convey a point. So this is what you need to put the stress on. So there's no point in trying people outside of your area to understand the technical depths and appreciate it. It's more about being able to refer to high-level concepts, abstract concepts, and the impact of your work.
All right, great answer. So next question will be related to doing a postdoc. So what are your thoughts on doing a postdoc? Do you recommend doing a postdoc before going to the market? Or even like you don't get a good offer, should you do a postdoc and then go to the market?
I think having a clear objective on why you want to do a postdoc, or why you're doing this postdoc is very important. So if you want to do a postdoc to add some more publications in the ones that you already have, and maybe add 1 or 2 more reference letters, this is a valid thing to do. Whether you want to increase your breadth and work on something else as well, this is a valid thing to do. But it's important to know when you go for a postdoc and when you're going to be on the market. Going for a postdoc after you are in the market, or like this pre-faculty positions, it's again a completely different story. So time and the objective is very important, and the answers are very different there. So in my case, for example, I was on the job market right after my PhD, but I immediately started my time at Microsoft Research, and I extended my time there for another year. So I wasn't trying to get something out of my postdoc to strengthen my application.
That's nice. So one more very interesting question. So what is the hardest interview question you were asked during your interview process? Can you name any? Or
I can't remember exactly what the question was, but I do remember when I interviewed, this was 2 faculty members in one room, so they were kind of asking questions. I think it was after lunch, and these are 2 prominent computer architects who were in the department, and this was in the 90s, so there was a lot of debate still about RISC and CISC architectures going on. So I was asked a question. Apparently I took the wrong side. So that was very clear from one of the people who raised his voice, and then I immediately understood that this is so you may end up being in a place where you basically said something, and this was purely technical. This is nothing personal. This is purely technical opinion, and but you are on the wrong side. So I don't exactly know how I managed it, but I know at least you should sense it, so you don't go further, way too much. So I could sense it very quickly, and then any issue has both sides. So you somehow have to manage the situation if something like that happens. So you can talk about other perspectives on the same problem. You can talk about some things in order to manage the situation. So that was probably the hardest situation I was in as I was interviewing.
That's nice. Kexin, do you have anything else to add for like this question or any previous questions?
Right. I think I didn't receive like a very challenging question, but I do hear examples like people asking doing some differential privacy equations given the candidates are not from that field. But what I have received is similar in terms of technical stuff, where I talk to, for example, programming language faculties, and some of the concepts were not so familiar with me. My strategy was always like I try to be truthful and upfront. If I don't know, I don't know, and I ask their question and try to find connections to my own research, whether I could help in any perspective in their technical research part. So yeah, that's the hardest question I have received, mostly on some unfamiliar concepts.
Right.
I can add,
yeah.
I can add a little bit, but I think it's actually important. So actually, if you are well prepared, it's really difficult to be surprised by questions. Like the set of questions is actually quite short, I would say. So after a couple of interviews, like you would not be able to, get questions that you haven't thought about. But so that's what you can do about it is to have some mock interviews, like either in your university or with colleagues. So in my case, I emailed some professors and just ask them, like, do you have like half an hour to just question me, like question answer? So that's really, really helpful. And there could be questions that you have never thought about. Like, for example, okay, we give you a group, we give you $1 million funding. What do you do? Where do you start? Right. This is a very tough question for a PG student fresh out of the program. But if you have an answer, you have an answer.
I'd like to share an experience as well, because I think it's something that it's slightly different in Europe, at least. I had applied both in the US and Canada and Europe. And at least in some European universities, I know Imperial is doing it, I know ETH is doing it. There is a panel interview, which is a panel of faculty members from this department, and they can ask you questions all over the place, from super technical questions that have to do with your research, all the way to teaching and diversity and departmental planning and whatnot. So to me, that was the most challenging experience, because people changed questions, and the focus of the questions and the topic of the questions was so versatile, and you had to context switch rapidly and be able to give short and succinct and smart answers across a wide range of topics within 30 seconds apart or something. So I think the panel interview, it's quite a unique and challenging experience because of its versatility.
Let me add one very common question. So I'm sure others tell you, but as a panel, I don't want to miss it, that we didn't discuss it. Often you will be asked, where do you see your research going in 5 years? Where do you see your research going in 10 years? So you kind of want to have some plans like 5 and 10 or 15. So you shouldn't be thinking on it there. You should think about it early and practice it in a mock interview.
That's super nice. So one final question before we close the event. So will it help a lot by applying early? For example, some departments saying review starts on, say, November 1st until position are filled. Will it hurt a lot by applying later than deadline, or will it help a lot by applying earlier, much earlier than that?
I would say it varies from university to university, department to department, year to year on situations. Often there is some point, until you will wait, at least in some of the schools I have been involved, but there may be places where they plan to do things as early as possible in order to improve their chance of getting, be the first one to call them so they will come, that kind of thing. But in many places, they'll wait until a certain time, 11/1 or 12/1, and whatever is at that time is evaluated. Very occasionally, if someone applied late, it may still get considered because there weren't enough in the pool in the earlier. But it is good for you to apply by the deadline or very quickly after that. When you are delaying too much, you are waiting on, maybe there is luck, but sometimes there is not. There may be enough candidates out there and the committee has moved.
Very good point. I guess that will be it. So we are already a few minutes over in time, but thank you so much for all our panelists to join us and share their valuable thoughts. Yeah, thank you all our audiences for joining us and asking questions. Yeah, thanks all the students and systems organizers who have been working so hard for several months to organize this event. So so this will conclude our event, and hope everyone have a good day, good night, good weekend or something. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us.
Wishing lots of luck. Wishing lots of luck to all those who are trying to find a position.
Thank you. That's for sure. That's nice.
Good luck.
Very much. Good luck, everyone.
Yeah.
And to apply to NTU Singapore, we are expanding a lot.